Hello coin lovers, welcome to the Coin Riches channel. This coin found in old piggy bank, and what happened next shocked even seasoned collectors. Imagine opening a dusty drawer, shaking an old jar of forgotten change, and spotting a simple-looking nickel that feels just slightly different. Not heavier. Not shinier. Just different. The kind of coin most people would ignore without a second thought. But sometimes, history hides in plain sight. And sometimes, a single 5-cent coin can rewrite someone's life overnight. Today, we're diving into one of the most underestimated coins in modern American pocket change, the 1987 Jefferson Nickel. At first glance, it looks ordinary. Millions were minted. It circulated through grocery stores, gas stations, and vending machines. It passed through hands that never realized they might be holding something extraordinary. That's what makes this story so powerful. Because unlike ancient gold coins or rare silver treasures locked away in museums, this coin lived among everyday people. Picture this: a quiet afternoon. A middle-aged man cleaning out his childhood home. Boxes stacked in the corner. Old toys. Yellowed newspapers. And then, a piggy bank. The kind shaped like a cartoon animal, dusty but intact. He cracks it open, expecting a handful of small change and memories. Pennies spill out first. Then a few dimes. A couple of quarters. And finally, nickels. Nothing exciting. Until one coin catches his eye, not because it looked valuable, but because it looked too perfect. The year read 1987. The mint mark. A small but important letter P. Philadelphia Mint. Again, nothing unusual. But the condition, that's where everything changed. The coin had sharp details. Crisp edges. A smooth, almost satin-like surface. No heavy scratches. No dullness. It didn't look like a coin that had spent decades in circulation. It looked preserved. Frozen in time, most people would toss it back into the pile. But curiosity is the spark that ignites discovery. He flipped the coin under the light. On one side, the familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson, calm and timeless. On the reverse, Monticello standing proudly, the symbol that has defined the Jefferson nickel for generations. But this one felt different. Cleaner. Sharper. Almost like it carried a secret. And here's where the real journey begins, because the truth about rare coins isn't always about age. It's about condition. It's about tiny details invisible to the untrained eye. It's about the subtle differences that separate an ordinary coin from a collector's dream. And in the world of numismatics, the difference between a common nickel and a six-figure treasure can come down to microscopic perfection. The 1987 Jefferson Nickel belongs to an era when coin production was fast, efficient, and massive. The U.S. Mint was producing coins for a growing nation, pushing machines to their limits. Quality control existed, but perfection wasn't the goal, volume was. That means finding a flawless example decades later is incredibly rare. Most coins from that year entered circulation immediately. They were scratched, worn, dropped, and forgotten, but every once in a while, a survivor emerges. Coins that escape circulation live quiet lives. They sit in drawers. Piggy banks. Forgotten envelopes. They avoid scratches. They avoid damage. And over time, they become something collectors crave: time capsules. Not just coins, but untouched moments in history. Now imagine being a collector who has spent decades searching for the finest examples of modern coins. You've seen thousands, maybe millions. Your eyes are trained to notice things others can't. You know the texture of original mint luster. You can spot artificial shine from a mile away. And then suddenly, someone places a coin in front of you that stops you cold. That's exactly what happened next. The nickel from that piggy bank eventually made its way into the hands of a professional coin dealer. At first, he expected nothing special. After all, modern nickels rarely command serious attention. But the moment he held it under magnification, his expression changed. The fields were smooth. The strike was bold. The details in Jefferson's hair were unusually sharp. Monticello's steps were clearly defined, something rarely seen in circulation strikes. That he leaned closer. Tilted the coin. Watched the light dance across its surface. And then came the silence every collector knows, the kind that means something unusual is unfolding, because coins like this don't announce themselves loudly. They whisper. The dealer didn't speak immediately. Instead, he reached for better lighting. A stronger loop. He examined the edges, searching for signs of cleaning. None. He checked for contact marks. Almost non-existent. He studied the mint luster, that delicate, cartwheel-like glow that only original coins possess. And there it was. Alive. Untouched. Pure. That's when the realization began to settle in. This wasn't just a nice coin. This was an elite survivor, and here's something most people don't realize: modern coins in near-perfect condition can be rarer than centuries-old silver. Why? Because older coins were saved intentionally. But modern coins were spent. Used. Ignored. The survival rate of pristine examples is shockingly low. Especially for everyday denominations like nickels, which brings us to the hidden truth about the 1987 Jefferson Nickel. It sits in a strange space in the coin world. Too modern for casual collectors to notice. Too common in worn condition to attract attention. But in flawless condition, it transforms. It crosses an invisible line. It becomes a rarity not defined by mintage numbers, but by survival, and survival is everything. As word began to spread quietly among collectors, interest grew. Not loud interest. Not viral headlines. But the kind of deep, serious attention that happens behind the scenes. Private conversations. Careful examinations. Quiet offers. Because when something rare appears unexpectedly, experienced collectors move fast, but silently, and that's when the story took a turn no one expected. As the news quietly circulated among serious collectors, the atmosphere shifted from curiosity to urgency. In the world of coin collecting, moments like this don't happen often. When a modern coin shows signs of extraordinary preservation, it creates a ripple effect. Veteran collectors lean in. Dealers start making calls. And suddenly, something that once sat forgotten in a piggy bank begins drawing attention from people who understand just how rare perfection can be. The dealer who first examined the coin knew he was holding something special, but he also knew better than to jump to conclusions. In numismatics, excitement must always be balanced with proof. So instead of making bold claims, he did what professionals do: he slowed down. He documented the coin carefully. High-resolution photographs. Controlled lighting. Multiple angles. Every detail preserved, just in case this ordinary-looking nickel turned out to be anything but ordinary. What stood out most wasn't just the shine. It was the structure. The strike strength. The way Jefferson's portrait seemed to rise from the surface with unusual clarity. On most 1987 nickels, small details appear soft, almost melted into the metal. But this one held its shape. The cheek lines were defined. The lettering was bold. The rims were clean and complete. Even Monticello on the reverse appeared unusually sharp, with architectural lines that looked more sculpted than stamped. That's when the possibility entered the room, not spoken aloud, but understood. Could this be one of the finest known examples? In the coin world, condition is graded on a scale that separates the ordinary from the legendary. Most circulated coins fall far below the top levels. Even uncirculated coins, straight from bank rolls, often carry tiny flaws. A microscopic nick. A faint abrasion. A dull patch in the luster. These tiny imperfections are enough to hold a coin back from greatness. But once in a rare while, a coin appears that seems to defy that pattern, and this nickel was beginning to look like one of those coins. The owner, still unaware of how serious things were becoming, simply wanted to know if it was worth keeping. That innocent question made the moment even more powerful. Because while collectors saw a rarity, he still saw a childhood memory. A coin that had quietly followed him through decades of life, unnoticed until now. The dealer suggested the next step carefully: professional grading. For those outside the hobby, grading might sound simple. But in reality, it's the turning point where a coin's fate is sealed. Once a coin is evaluated by top experts and sealed in a protective holder, its identity becomes official. Its condition is no longer an opinion. It becomes a fact recognized worldwide. And sometimes, that moment can transform a coin's value instantly. The decision wasn't easy. Sending a coin for grading requires patience, trust, and nerves of steel. Weeks can feel like months when you're waiting for a result that might change everything. But eventually, the coin was prepared, packaged securely, and sent off for evaluation. And then came the waiting. This is the part of the journey most people never see. The silence. The uncertainty. The endless questions that fill your mind. What if it's not as good as it looks? What if expectations are too high? What if it comes back ordinary? These thoughts haunt even experienced collectors. Because until the grade is revealed, everything hangs in the balance. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, experts examined the coin under unforgiving magnification. Powerful lights exposed every surface. Microscopic flaws that human eyes would never notice suddenly became critical details. This is where myths are shattered and legends are born. Where coins either rise into elite territory, or fall back into obscurity. The graders studied the luster first. Original mint luster is one of the hardest qualities to preserve, and one of the easiest to destroy. Cleaning, even lightly, can erase it forever. But this nickel still carried that unmistakable glow, the kind that rolls across the surface like liquid light when tilted. A sign that it had never been tampered with. Next came the strike quality. Weak strikes are common in mass-produced coins, especially from busy mint years. But this example showed unusual strength. Jefferson's features were fully realized. The reverse design held depth and clarity. The coin didn't look flat. It looked alive. Then came surface preservation, the silent killer of high grades. Tiny marks from contact with other coins can drag a grade down instantly. But as the graders rotated the nickel under magnification, they saw something astonishing. The fields remained remarkably clean. No distracting scars. No heavy abrasions. Just smooth, uninterrupted surfaces that hinted at decades of protection. At this point, the atmosphere in the grading room reportedly shifted. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just a subtle understanding passing between experts who had seen millions of coins. The kind of understanding that doesn't need words. They knew they were looking at something rare, but even then, perfection is a dangerous word in numismatics. True perfection is almost mythical. Coins are struck in metal, not magic. There are always tiny imperfections hiding somewhere. The question isn't whether flaws exist, it's how few there are, and how invisible they remain. As the evaluation continued, the graders compared the nickel to benchmark examples. Coins already known for their exceptional quality. This is where legends are tested. Because to stand among the finest known, a coin must do more than look good. It must compete with history, and incredibly, this humble 1987 Jefferson Nickel was holding its ground. Far away, the owner waited without realizing the storm quietly forming around his coin. Life continued as usual. Days passed. Then weeks. But inside the world of collectors, anticipation was building. Because when whispers begin about an unusually high-grade modern coin, people pay attention. Not loudly. But very, very closely. Finally, the moment arrived. The grading process was complete. The results were sealed. The coin was now officially documented, no longer just a lucky find from an old piggy bank, but a recognized piece of numismatic reality. And when the grade was finally revealed, it sent a shockwave through the small but passionate circle of collectors who had been watching closely. When the sealed package finally arrived, it didn't look dramatic. No flashing lights. No headlines. Just a small, secure holder containing a coin that had quietly traveled from a forgotten piggy bank into the highest levels of professional evaluation. But for those who understood the journey, this moment carried enormous weight. The owner held the slab in his hands, staring through the clear casing at the same nickel he had once almost ignored. It looked unchanged, same portrait, same Monticello, same small piece of metal. But everything about it was different now. Because printed above the coin, in cold, undeniable lettering, was the grade that would redefine its destiny. An elite, near-perfect grade, the kind of grade that transforms a modern coin from ordinary to legendary. For a few seconds, there was silence. Not because it was confusing, but because it was overwhelming. The realization didn't arrive all at once. It crept in slowly. This wasn't just a nice coin. This wasn't just a collectible. This was one of the finest preserved 1987 Jefferson nickels known to exist, and in the world of coin collecting, finest known is a powerful phrase, because rarity isn't always about how many were made. Sometimes it's about how many survived in extraordinary condition. Millions of 1987 nickels were struck. But almost all of them lived hard lives. They were spent, scratched, worn down by time. Finding one untouched after decades is rare. Finding one that borders on perfection, that's something else entirely. Within days, quiet conversations began spreading through collector circles. Not public announcements. Not social media hype. Just private messages between serious buyers. Photos were shared carefully. The certification was verified. And slowly, the understanding settled in. This coin wasn't just rare. It was elite. Collectors who specialize in high-grade modern coins pay attention to moments like this. Because registry-level coins, the absolute best examples, carry a special kind of prestige. Owning one isn't just about money. It's about legacy. It's about holding a benchmark that defines the top of the scale. And when a coin like this surfaces unexpectedly, it creates something powerful. Competition offers began quietly. At first, they were cautious. Respectful. Serious collectors testing the waters. But as more people realized just how exceptional the coin was, the tone began to change. The offers grew stronger. Faster. More determined. Because in this tier of collecting, hesitation can mean losing a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Imagine the emotional weight of that moment. A coin you once kept as spare change now drawing life-changing attention. A simple nickel now the center of conversations among experts. It's the kind of transformation that feels almost unreal, like watching an ordinary object step into a spotlight it was never meant to find, and yet, this is the magic of numismatics. Every coin carries two stories. The one everyone sees, and the one waiting to be discovered. For decades, this 1987 nickel lived a quiet life. No auctions. No displays. No recognition. It passed through time unnoticed, holding on to its original beauty while the world moved on. And then, in a single unexpected moment, everything changed. Not because the coin changed, but because someone finally looked closely enough. As interest intensified, seasoned collectors began analyzing every detail. Not just the grade, but the eye appeal. The balance of luster. The sharpness of the strike. The overall presence that separates a technically great coin from a truly unforgettable one. Because at the highest levels, numbers alone aren't enough. Presence matters. Beauty matters. That intangible quality that makes a coin feel alive, and this nickel had it. The surfaces glowed with original mint brilliance. The details stood proud and confident. There was no sense of wear, no dullness, no lifelessness. It looked like a coin that had defied time itself, preserved in a way that felt almost impossible for something so small and so ordinary. Then came the turning point. A serious collector stepped forward with an offer that changed the conversation entirely. Not cautious. Not tentative. A bold, undeniable number that instantly elevated the coin into a new category. The kind of offer that forces silence. The kind that makes people lean back and reconsider everything they thought they knew about modern coins, because moments like this don't just reveal value, they redefine perception. Suddenly, the story wasn't just about a nickel anymore. It was about possibility. About the idea that extraordinary treasures can hide in the most ordinary places. That history isn't always locked in vaults or museums. Sometimes, it sleeps quietly in piggy banks, drawers, and forgotten jars of change, and perhaps that's the most powerful part of this story, not the rarity. Not the grade. Not even the money. It's the reminder that overlooked things can hold incredible potential. That small discoveries can lead to massive transformations. That something dismissed as pocket change can one day command the respect of an entire collecting community. In the end, the once forgotten 1987 Jefferson Nickel completed a journey few coins ever experience. From childhood savings to professional grading. From anonymity to elite recognition. From a dusty piggy bank to the center of serious collector demand, and when the dust finally settled, when the whispers became reality and the offers turned concrete, the value attached to this humble 5-cent coin left people stunned, because this ordinary-looking nickel, the one almost ignored, almost spent, almost forgotten, reached an astonishing valuation of $131,000. Let that sink in. 0.5 cents, transformed into 6 figures, all because someone paused, looked closer, and realized that sometimes, the smallest things carry the biggest surprises. So the next time you come across an old jar of coins, don't rush past it. Don't assume it's worthless. Because hidden among the ordinary, there might be a silent survivor waiting for its story to be discovered, just like this 1987 Jefferson Nickel that turned a simple piggy bank into a life-changing moment.